Game of the week, second place Origen versus first place Fnatic. And even though this is no longer a battle between the two undefeated teams in Europe, it remains a banner match between two of the top squads in the LCS. Plus, you can't deny the excitement that will hit the Rift as Peke and Sjokz face their former teammates Rekkles and Yellowstar. This BF Game of the Week will take place on Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central European Summer Time. And now to help us shine a light on that match, let's bring in Sjokz de Portre to Primetime League. How's it going, Sjokz?
Well, I'm a year older, but none the wiser, Rivington.
Indeed. Happy belated birthday. So before we talk about BF Game of the Week, you wanted to talk about Origen's loss to Rocket.
Yeah, definitely, because a lot of people actually, frankly, expected Origen to go into Week 4 undefeated 6-0, but they got a loss from Rocket, which is quite unexpected because Rocket had not been on a roll up to then. But the way Origen played was not very convincing. And to illustrate this, normally on average in the 5 games they played before that, they were 4,000 gold up at 20 minutes. Now they were only down 818 gold versus Rocket at 20, which is not even 1K. But the way they played off of that was just really, really telling. They hadn't played from behind in the LCS yet, and they kept funneling into these positions that they shouldn't, taking fights they shouldn't in choke points versus a Rumble or versus an Azir, and Rocket was just able to completely roll over them. I do feel like for Origen, it's a good thing that this happened before their matchup versus Fnatic, and at least they can learn from their mistakes and learn from playing from behind.
That's an interesting take, and hopefully they do have enough time before they face Fnatic to shore up those problems. But let's bring Fnatic into the mix now and talk about this matchup.
Yeah, well, obviously, Fnatic versus Origen, there is a bit, or I should say a lot of history there, because Xpeke and Sjokz, who were members of Fnatic for so long, Xpeke left, built his own team in Origen, only Yellowstar was left, and now Rekkles, of course, in Fnatic as well. And now these two teams are fighting each other for the top of the tables in the European LCS. What I know for sure is that it is going to be a very aggressive early game. Both D teams have shown to be very, very feisty when it comes to the early game. As an illustration, Fnatic up to now has had 27 kills and 19 deaths in the early game before 15 minutes. Origen is up there with 24 kills and 12 deaths. So if there's anything that's going to happen, it's going to be bloody, and I hope it happens as well. If we look at this matchup lane to lane, every single lane has an incredibly interesting story and just has a lot to look at. We start at the top lane. Sjokz versus Huni. Sjokz, for a long time, regarded as one of the best top laners in EU, but now Huni has taken that spot. He has shown a lot of champion diversity. There is some overlap there with Sjokz in the Rumble, in the Hecarim, but it will be very interesting to see what he goes for. Will Huni be up there and step up and carry, or will they play more team play oriented or counter pick like they did with the Cho'Gath versus the Ryze? A lot of that will depend on the jungle matchup as well. Amazing versus Reignover. Reignover and Huni is one of the best top laner jungle combos, in my opinion, we've seen in Europe in a very, very long time, and Reignover is always there to help that top lane and the rest of the lanes. But on the other hand, Amazing has also shown to be very, very aggressive in the early game for OG. So I'd love to see how that plays out. And then moving on to the mid lane, Xpeke versus Febiven, the Fallen King versus the Prince, the heir to the throne. If you look at both of their playstyles, actually, they have been going for champions like Cassio, like Orianna for Xpeke, like Azir for Febiven, that haven't really been that explosive. But when it comes to the numbers in the early game, Febiven has definitely been more active. 5, 6, and 3 so far before 15 minutes, and Xpeke only 2, 1, and 1. So we'll have to see what they decide to do if Xpeke decides to be a little more aggressive in the early game, also coming off that loss from Rocket, and what happens. Then turning to the bottom lane, what an interesting matchup we have there. Niels versus Rekkles. Niels, our week 1 MVP, exploding onto the European LCS. A fantastic thing we saw in his second game of the split. Up versus Rekkles, who has, of course, returned to Fnatic after his stint on Alliance and Elements, and well, is now looking to show his true talent, because he's always been looked at as that fantastic AD carry in Europe. But now there's Niels there in the opposite lane against from him, who has been putting up fantastic numbers, and they wouldn't be anything without, of course, their support. Mithy on the side of Origen has been showing immense mechanical prowess and shot calling. But if you talk about shot calling and decision making, there's Yellowstar on the other side for Fnatic, who has stuck with that team, has stuck with that organization, and built it back from the ground up. So there are just a ton of interesting storylines to follow here.
An amazing rundown of the lane, Sjokz. Thank you so much. Now, with all this in mind, how do you see it playing out?
Well, I think Fnatic's going to take it, Riv.
Fair enough. All right, Sjokz, thank you for joining us. We look forward to that game tomorrow.
Yeah, Riv, I definitely can't wait. Fnatic versus Origen. I wish it was right now. I'm so excited.
All right.